considering all that, that kind of brings up the fact that another guy is not at all producing.
Yeah.
And when something like this happens, you have that next man up mentality. And maybe it's not like there's a ton of depth at the wing, I guess we would say. So it kind of really becomes imperative that Harrison Barnes, especially if he's not producing up until you know the road trip, anyways, it doesn't help that he's continuing to not produce. And it seemed like Harrison Barnes had a few good games or like improved games. It seemed like he'd gotten in a little bit of a better rhythm, made a little bit more of a positive impact. But especially in this Warriors game on Monday night, 0 points, I think just a couple of rebounds, a couple of turnovers, just an absolute non factor. And he's one of your higher paid players on the team. And I feel like we say this now week after week. This is an issue. And week after week, the leash on it, I guess you could say, about being patient with this veteran that should figure it out. It's starting to wear thin, and I don't know. It more so than Murray's lack of production in the last couple of games. Considering there's reason for it, it just underlines the fact that Barnes is really just an open wound on this team right now.
Yeah, Barnes looks awful. He just looks awful. He scored 0 points against the Warriors. He scored 4 points. Kings win that game. But I just like what's going on with him? I just don't know what to say. I thought like I've said this again and again. I thought he was going to have a really good year coming in, being that fourth guy, that fourth scoring option. But geez, maybe he needed to be that second scoring option. Oh man, he's just so bad. And he's in a contract year too, which is unusual, right? A lot of people usually play well in their contract year. So I don't know what's going on. He started off the season last year so well too, and so for him just to do the complete opposite and just play terribly, it's just weird and frustrating and disappointing and just so many words. But yeah, he's hurting the team big time. What do you do with him? Do you start looking at trades for him, or do you maybe even move him to the bench? I don't know.
That's that it's these residual problems too that come in. If you're not producing on the court, what are you going to do? Like Harrison Barnes had value before the season started. It was a very, very adequate small forward, small four in this league, and now that's all in question. And it's like, even if he's just hitting threes, even if he's kind of making the mistakes, kind of dribbling into nowhere or making turnovers or not looking, like the Harrison Barnes that we know, or looking like an even more regressed version on the defensive end, even if he's just hitting threes, it's like, okay, he's got that value to him. But, other than the fact that he's kind of like a steady presence, maybe, which is maybe the best thing you can say, then that's without the ball in his hands or anything like that. Like, that's the best thing you can say about him being on the floor. It's like, that's not really the highest of stock, and now it's like, what can you get for him? I guess you could say this would make it easier to retain him if you wanted to sign him again, but I don't really know what that does for you right now. That just seems that do you want him at that point? And I don't know. I mean, there's that big picture. That kind of becomes an issue, and I don't know why he's not playing well. I mean, he's such a professional that there's no funny business going on. It's not like he doesn't want to be here or something like that. I think that even if he wanted to be out of Sacramento, I don't think Harrison Barnes would play like crap, to try to get out of that. That's not who he is. So it wouldn't be anything like that, despite the fact that it seemed as if all offseason that the Kings were going to pull the trigger on a Harrison Barnes trade. And there had been some whispers about him potentially being involved in a deal with Phoenix that I don't know um, if we're really picked up by many outlets, but I don't know if we're 100% confirmed, but it's not surprising, and it's constantly brought up, and it's probably not like I said anything to do with dissatisfaction, but maybe things wear on him. Maybe there's distractions, and I don't know. You just get into a kind of a speculative space there, and it's just all it is just a growing problem for the Kings, and from on the floor to dealing in the front office, and it's an issue. It's a huge issue, and you'd expect him to have stepped up. Um, if something's going on with the Rook, you'd think he would step up in that situation, and he just really didn't. Um, so I don't know if it's a distraction thing. I don't know if it's a rhythm thing. Still, I have no idea. Uh, all that we know is it's a big problem, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know. A trade I have kind of been thinking about though for Barnes possibly um, is kind of like a Jay Crowder swap, essentially to Phoenix, since Crowder's holding out until he gets traded. And then on top of that, Cam Johnson, a
Mm-hmm.
forward in Phoenix, who's a key player to this team or to the Phoenix team. He just tore his meniscus, so he's out for a couple months. Um, Crowder's not playing anyway. Maybe trade Barnes there. He can, even if Barnes doesn't have that much value right now. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a career 38% 3-point shooter. Like, he's a proven guy, and it's only what 9 games in so far. Um, and I feel like putting Barnes on like a championship level team will do good for him as well. And maybe Phoenix will know that too. But I don't know. Maybe he just sucks now and he'll never be the same. I doubt that. I think he can turn it around, but that's really the only trade out there that I see that makes sense. Just because not only is Jay Crowder not playing, and Phoenix, probably wants to get rid of him, but now one of their forwards are down, and a couple months. That's a long time, and Barnes can definitely hold it down for them if he can even get like halfway back on track. At least he's something. So
Yeah, and that made some pretty decent sense even a week ago, but it makes all the more sense now. Um, Obviously, the injury and the fact that Crowder's not even playing, that's Crowder's not playing in Phoenix. Harrison Barnes is effectively not playing in Sacramento. So it doesn't really hurt, regardless of the fact that, Crowder's a little bit older and you don't necessarily know what you're going to get off the bat. But, I guess it doesn't really hurt at this point. And it seems like if they could pull off a deal like that, it seems like that would be the only feasible kind of route because again, it's just what does Harrison Barnes have to offer? Um, for the Suns and for the Kings, that's a really just that can't hurt at the end of the day. I mean, it's not like what you got going on right now is necessarily producing a whole lot. So that could be kind of a I think that could definitely work to both teams' benefit and potentially happen, but I don't know.
yeah,
Still, Harrison Barnes is still playing so poorly, and I guess it
yeah,
just depends how the Phoenix Suns view that situation. Um,
yeah, and it's still like I said, it's only 9 games in. I mean, is there a reason to worry? Yes, he looks awful out there. I mean, he looks like he's regressed offensively and defensively. Um, defensively, I said that bad. He's not hitting his threes, and it looks like he's like lost a step in lateral quickness, and he can't. It's hard for him to stay in front of his man. So that's a big cause for concern, like we've been saying. Um, but it's still early on, and like you said, it's like what's the reason? Like, why is he playing poorly? There's like nothing to pinpoint at the moment. So I mean, there is always a chance that he just turns it around and turns into a good old 15 point, 5 rebound, 3 assist Barnes. And if he does that, man, this team will look a lot different. But I mean, I still hope, and I still think he'll be able to do it. But it just, you know, your hopes kind of go down a little. Just a couple, 9 games in, he's played this bad. So we'll see. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on because he's hurting this team significantly. But man, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, the threes just start falling if he gets a little bit of a better under. I mean, it's not just even sometimes guarding his man because sometimes he's had issues with that in the past. Obviously, he's not like the most gifted one-on-one defender, but he's blown some rotations and allowed some backdoor cuts here and there, and a lot of guys have. And I just think that's part of a process of gaining the chemistry and trust of playing on that string together defensively, which has gotten a lot better with each game for the most part. And it's a far cry from when they started the season. So much better. And so it's like, given the fact that there's a good probability those threes will start falling at a clip, it doesn't necessarily have to be 38%. If he's just shooting over 35%, that could make all the difference. The Kings could have beaten the Warriors last night if he hits a couple of his threes. I think he was 0 of 3 from deep. And I don't know. It's got to happen sooner or later. And it's just each week it's like, oh, no, it's Barnes, he's a vet. And then it's like the next week you're kind of saying the same thing. Has a little bit more sweat on your brow. And then the week after that you say it again and you're kind of like, your lips are twitching. There's lying through your teeth. And it's just like, I don't know. It just gets, I don't want to like make it seem like it's the end of the world. He's only 30. He's still got a lot left in him. But these games are close and you can't afford to just not show up, you know?
Yeah, especially your starting small forward. I mean, it's a very key position in this league. And
Making over $18 million. Like, dude.
come on.
Dude, come on, man.